we are Global Talent Exchange. We enable organizations to look at global talent pools outside of India. We are a platform that enables essentially NRIs who are looking at coming back to India to settle down in India. So that's about GTX, to give you a quick brief background. So we can start off with the introduction. I'll start with mine. So I am the co-founder of Global Talent Exchange. We kind of started this journey about 2 years back now. 2018 is when we kind of started with the idea of looking at global talent and the India opportunity and how we can kind of map global talent to India opportunities. So there's a lot actually happening when it comes to global talent migration. And we see an opportunity that, while there is a huge demand here, there is still a gap in terms of the talent, the kind of talent that we're looking at for in India. And that's how, our story kind of began. So I come with about 20 years of experience in talent acquisition solutioning space. We started me and my co-founder Yadu started our careers with Naukri.com way back in 2002. And ever since then, we've kind of been in this space, worked with, startups like, ClickJobs and LinkedIn and other HR tech startups. So that's a little bit about me. We'll probably go around the table. So, we'll start with Jyoti to, begin with. So if you could just help us, tell us a little bit about your role, how you impact the TA within the organization. That'll help us, Jyoti.
Hey, hi everyone. Good morning. So I'm Jyoti Mohanty. So basically, I come with around 13, 14 years of experience. And so with a master's in finance and interestingly, a master's in MBA in contemporary marketing as well. So both doesn't gel well in one go, but yes, I had to take 2 degrees for this. And the later one, of course, happened at last year only. So I decided to take a break after 11 years of work. And this was deliberately in line with what Avinash said. Was my thought was to go out of India, I did acquire a global MBA with SP Jain. But yes, then something pulled me back to India. When I had, I think later on we'll touch upon that. And I am currently with a revenue cycle management organization. So it's a US based company. So we are tech driven RCM provider assisting healthcare providers in solving their revenue cycle issues and smoothing the patient experience per se. And what my role involves is setting up a India program management office. So where we deal with strategic projects, transitioning of projects from US to India. So we are 20,000 plus workforce globally and almost divided equally. India is around 10,000 plus people, and in US we have 10,000 plus. So herein I also look at the central operation and analytics team. So my job involves around, after this work from home deployment, how we can optimize resources, how we can look at efficiency, building in efficiency with assistance of, talent acquisition. I closely work, with a project where now we are looking at hiring fresh talent, and how do we do it in a how do I, with partner with organizations and get some part of the training done. So the larger issue, I think we all know at a fresher band is attrition and people churning around. But of course, COVID has somehow helped, reduce it at a fresher band. But however, we are still looking at streamlining the model, how we can build a sustainable model where we get freshers and we get for basically for voice processes, because we have some part of the BPO as well. So where we see major chunks. So there's a project where I'm directly or closely working with the TA team, where we're looking at hiring people in thousands every year. So that's how, if I can say in a nutshell about myself. And my last organization, I was with a financial organization of close to 9 years with SDFC Life. So I was into BD roles, and then my last role involved around performance marketing, digital marketing in itself. So I have exhaustively worked across Eastern India in my previous role with SDFC.
Awesome, Jyoti. Ashish Goyal, you could
Sure.
introduce.
Sure, Vilash. And I see there's another Ashish in there. That's not me. That's likely somebody else. And I'm sure he will introduce himself. So yeah, I'm, as you can see, I'm part of VMware. I lead talent acquisition for VMware in India. Been with VMware about more than 8 years now. Uh, and throughout my career, I've been in HR business partner roles and in various COE roles of HR, but all the while in HR. This, surprisingly enough, is my first talent acquisition stint, but doing this job for the last 4 years, so I can call myself a recruiter now, I guess. So VMware as a company continues to grow globally, and in fact, ever since the pandemic started, we've been publicly stating that this is actually a great opportunity. This is a great time to get the talent or to buy the talent that you would not get in any other times. So we've actually been trying to capitalize on that opportunity. As a company, we've also been expanding our product portfolio over the last couple of years, both organically and inorganically, and that has posed increasing demands on the talent acquisition function. And I see that the talent acquisition function, both in the industry and within VMware, has evolved so significantly in the last few years, where we are in the forefront of influencing business leaders and managers in terms of their capability and how they need to be looking at talent moving forward. And that's been a large part of our journey at VMware. Of course, there are large numbers to be fulfilled at any point of time. That goes without saying, and I'm sure that's part of life of everybody out there.
Awesome. So Lakshmi Narayan will go with you next. You're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Avinash. You all can address me as Ellen instead of Lakshmi Narayanan. It's a very long name, so that's the reason on the screen. I just mentioned Ellen, so I thought you would be able to see. No problem.
Yeah.
Having said that, I represent EY, Ernst & Young, and I'm a HR person to the core. Almost it's been 3 decades I've been working in this industry, especially the IT part of it, IT, ITES, and in the professional services in the last couple of years. And when I say I've spent my entire career into the HR, so having worked in the space of HR business partner, then moved on to the HR operations, predominantly, majorly focusing on the talent acquisition part, and represented organizations like currently with EY, prior to which I was with the DXC Technologies for almost 1.5 decades, prior to which I was associated with HCL Technologies, Polaris, and Tata Infotech Limited, so which got merged with TCS over the years. So having spent years in this industry, so my journey, especially into the talent acquisition, started during the Y2K times when there was no database, nothing was available. And, we used to literally sit over a phone call and, do a lot of headhunting and run from company to company to check out at their entrance whether somebody is interested for some new opportunities. So my journey starts. Even today, if you ask me whether I am good at browsing the Naukri.com, no, maybe I am not the expert. Maybe the youngsters must be more expert in that area. But if you ask me that, how you are doing the headhunting part, I can add more into that area. So that's the kind of experience that we bring on table. And over the years, we have transformed. When I say we have transformed the recruitment, the entire model has changed in the industry. It doesn't remain that, wherein an organization seeks a candidate and, does interview. Then we add a lot of value, we add quality, we add automation, we add a lot of, intelligence into selecting a candidate. So those are some new attributes which has come in play, especially in the last decade or so. And this has really helped us to add a lot of quality. What I'm really looking forward is like, today the current trend, though many of us will feel that, there is enough supply. I personally feel the supply is there, but it is passive in nature. Maybe people are scared. People are out of fear, maybe looking for some opportunities to be explored so that they can keep some reserve in hand so that if they lose job, they can pick up the other one types, But normally, unless any organization which is hiring today, have the right kind of an engagement model, at the same time, attracting the right talents, and also continuing to engage till the onboarding of those resources are very key. And how they can engage is from the sourcing stage itself. That is what I'm really looking forward to, is like, how I can add on to my pipeline build up, a strategic pipeline build up across the streams, across the levels of the people. It is not only at the junior level, it is not only at the leadership level, it can be at any. At the same time, this leadership, this pipeline is going to be leveraged to the maximum. And the more you engage in the passive pipeline, that is where the engagement increases. You share more information about your organization with candidate. You ignite that interest in the candidate. So we do hire NRIs, we do hire expats. We are majorly into that. But how much more we can do, how much more we can create a pipeline of this. How we can proceed. So those are some factors that I really look forward.
Yeah, hopefully, I think we should be able to, take a lot from the rest of the participants here. Shubhna, can we go with you? You're on mute.
First of all, thank you so much, Avinash and Sharnita, for having me here. Glad to be part of this discussion, and I'm hoping to take away a lot of information from you all on how you are innovating in the talent acquisition space and how you're attracting talent back to India. Right, so I have over 20 years of experience in the industry, and I have performed a few roles ranging from CNB lead to HRBP, but predominantly worked in the HR business partnering space, right? In terms of industry exposure, ranges from BFSI to e-commerce to largely product companies, IT product companies. Currently with Freshworks, and Freshworks, as some of you may be aware, is a B2B SaaS product company headquartered in San Mateo, California, and having its development centers largely in India, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. And we also have our subsidiaries in Europe, Australia, the ASEAN region, as well as in the North America. So that's pretty much Freshworks. And now double clicking on that and talking about the talent landscape. Yes, we do hire NRIs, and we do have a number of leaders who are NRIs as well as American citizens, Indian Americans, and working with us. We are also victims of this war for talent. There's plenty of talent available. It's just the questioning of accessing the right talent today, and that seems to be the challenge. And in today's scheme of things, people are just shopping for jobs, right? The market is hot, especially Bangalore gives us a very, very tough time and run for money when it comes to hiring product talent, especially in the DSML space, data sciences, machine learning. So it's a question of giving them challenging opportunities. They want to see impact, they want to see visibility for their work, and they also want good cash in hand. And the average tenure seems to be around the 2 to 3 years. So, creating a value proposition for them that's a right mix of long-term wealth creation as well as short-term cash is one of the challenges that we face while attracting talent from this hot market of product companies, SaaS product companies. So that's in a nutshell. Again, looking forward to engage more in deeper discussions.
Awesome. Ashish, you.
Hey, hi, thanks. Looks like this is a very talent and HR heavy panel. So I'm not from that background. So excuse me if I don't really come up to that expectation. But yes, I have about 13 years of experience in managing digital transformation globally. Started with product development units back in States, and then been traveling for last 12 years. I've been in about 45 different cities across the world. I do a lot of work in defining future of the work, innovation and capabilities. So I do come across all the stuff that's mentioned in the panel as so far. Yeah, there is talent, and then there is fitment of right talent, and then there is people who have degrees but not really hands-on experience. So that mismatch is hugely seen when you talk about niche skills and data science or cognitive ability, artificial intelligence. I personally have certain experience where I hired PhDs, but then when you put them to work, they know theory, but they don't really understand domain, or they don't really convert that into real actionable stuff. So while if you look at the demographics, you see a lot of new players in terms of capabilities, but that capability doesn't really convert into skills that can take business from day one to running grounds. So I'd be more than happy to hear more from other panelists as to what they think and how we can contribute. And I'll chime in wherever my experience be of any use. So thank you and looking forward. Appreciate you having me here.
Deepti?
Thank you, Abhishek and Sharanita. My name is Deepti, and I've been associated with Happiest Minds Technologies. Around 15 years of experience in various fortes of HR, right from HR business partnering to talent management to a bit of talent acquisition, and also a bit of various segments of HR. Currently, I lead the Diversity and Inclusion Charter, and along with the HR business partnering role in my current organization. Happiest Minds has recently gone IPO, so there's a lot of scope of expansion which we're looking at from a global talent pool perspective, and looking to learn from each of you what are the best practices you're adopting. One of the challenges which we have faced while bringing talent from various geographies is a lot of immigration related constraints and a lot of restriction in terms of how we can operate in these regions. Like we were trying to expand in Netherlands and New Zealand and a little bit of Germany and further and so on. So different countries have different set of employment rules and immigration constraints. So how are you leveraging through and working around through these constraints and hiring talent back? Who is what we are looking at. And from a diversity perspective, I think this COVID situation has definitely expanded the talent pool. And we are trying to leverage that to the maximum with our growth plans. Looking forward to learn from all of you.
Awesome. Tasneem?
Hello, I'm Tasneem and I'm associated with Australia and New Zealand Bank. I started my career about 10 years back, and I started it pursuant to completing my master's in psychology. I am a major in hypnosis, psychology, and psychotherapy. So that's that intrigued a lot of my interest, and that's the biggest reason I wanted to pursue talent acquisition as a career. My work predominantly been talent acquisition with bits and pieces of employee relation and redeployment and transition support. At this point, I lead talent acquisition for the Australia and New Zealand Bank, specifically for the technology wing. My squad is called the Strategic Squad, and all of the roles that we manage are predominantly aligned with the strategic priority of the bank directly. So a lot of critical capability and a lot of niche hiring is what me and my squad do. When COVID happened, our immediate response was to stop hiring and figure out our retention plans for our existing employees. But ANZ was really, really quick strategy, and we ended up attracting a lot of customers. I can say we've hired as much as we've hired mid-pandemic in the last couple of years. And at this point, we are completely reimagining and redesigning the way we work. One of our biggest priorities for FY21 is reimagining workforce, and that is where companies like yours would be of real great help, because when it comes to hiring people from outside of the country, hiring talent from outside of the country, the biggest challenge is, in my opinion, accessibility. There is very little accessibility to this talent, and like Deepti rightly said, yes, there are a lot of immigration rules attached to it, but that comes much after. So we're really excited to reimagine our workforce capability. We're looking forward to doing that sometime in FY21. Leveraging early talent, incubating the gig economy. All of these things are things that my team is currently working on. And yes, that's about me.
Awesome. So I'll let my colleague Yadu introduce himself.
Uh, Hi everybody. I'm Yadu. I've co-founded Global Talent Exchange with Avinash, and I come in with about 17 years of experience in the talent acquisition space. Worked with a lot of HR tech startups and companies like LinkedIn and Naukri. So we're on a great mission to solve for kind of looking at global talent for India, and we're excited and looking forward to the discussion with you all. Thank you.
So that was resounding. All right. So before we get into the discussion, I'd just like to set the context with a small video from McKinsey in terms of the opportunity that we have. Sharnita, can we play the video, please?
Yes, give me a minute.
India is the second largest market in the world for digital consumers and growing fast. It had 560 million internet subscribers in 2018, twice as many as in 2014. Only China has more. Falling costs have spurred digital adoption. Data costs have dropped by more than 95% since 2013. Government programs have helped too. 1.2 billion Indians have biometric IDs. Many are linked to digital bank accounts. Businesses are also going digital, but adoption is uneven. Every sector has leaders, but also many that are behind. Highly digitized sectors like IT and business
Do you have?
Is it just me or did the video stop?
I think the video has stopped. So Sharnita, I think I'll ask Yadu to play it.
Okay, done.
Yeah, I can just.
Should I try again, Avinash?
Yeah, please. I think there's an issue at your end, Sharnita.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I'll let Yadu play. Sorry about that.
I think it's muted. Can't hear anything.
Avinash, you're muted.
I'm sorry. So if you look at the potential across sectors, there's immense potential.
Hey, Avinash, sorry to interrupt. I think you and Yadu both are operating from the same location. Maybe it is good that one of you mute your speaker and maybe reduce the total volume so that we don't get this echo. It is okay now. It is okay. It is okay now.
Sorry. Yeah. So while we say that, there's immense potential, in India across sectors, we still you see that as per the Global Talent Competitive Index, we are nowhere in the top 25 countries when it comes to attraction and retention of talent. There are close to 30 million Indians outside India. I mean, that's the largest. In fact, if you look at the talent migration, I think India has got the largest number of fellow Indians outside of India. That is, I mean, again, great talent that is kind of left for greener pastures and stuff like that. The number one, country is Switzerland, followed by US and then UK in terms of the Global Talent Competitive Index, right? So there is something that these countries are doing in terms of attracting talent. I mean, and we're not being able to retain or attract talent as much, right? And the lowest hanging fruit for us is the brain drain that has happened. So how do we ensure that, these are people who are, attracted first back to India? So, I mean, that's where, I want to kind of have this discussion with all of you and see. So we'll start, on three aspects, of course. One is the India story from your organization point of view, your industry point of view. Are we doing enough to attract and, retain? Is, global talent on your talent strategy at all? And if there are any best practices and, programs that you're running internally from your organization, that'll help the rest of us to, kind of make note of. And then we'll go with, specifics of your talent strategy. And then, of course, if there are stories, success stories of programs that you've run, or, people who've kind of come back and made that, impact of having had the global exposure, So we'll start with, the India story, within your organization. Ellen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure, Avinash. See, from EY perspective, we are one global organization, okay, and we have larger presence across geographies, and this enables us to stay in connect with every candidate. We are a bit high on NRIs, we are a bit high on expats. So these are all regular incumbents whom we continue to hire. I personally feel that, what any organization today, it is not only related with the organization that I am connected with. Maybe prior to this, I was with DXC Technologies, almost for 15 years. We did have our own challenges in getting the right resources, especially the expats and all. So what any organization today requires is like, they need to look at whether they have the right kind of a global mobility framework. How effective that is, that is one. Second is like, what kind of roles that they really require these people for. Lot of times what really happens is like, though the supply, as you said, is pretty high, but at the same time, from the demand perspective, how in India, we do not have such talents. It is not like that. It is basically, we try to vie for the same candidate across multiple organizations. So it is basically a talent competition which happens, and to attract talents for various organizations. And if there is one resource, there are 10 companies vying for that particular resource. So we are growing. As you rightly said, maybe we'll be standing at around 25th or 30th kind of stuff, but at the same time, ours is a still growing economy. It is not that something we have already 100% developed kind of stuff, but at the same time, what really entails is how effectively we are putting our processes, framework around the policies, around hiring, attracting talents, that is very key. One is global mobility program. Second one is what kind of skills that we need to attract them for. Do we really need to attract them for all generic skills? Not really required. Maybe people with real expertise on certain areas, that's what required. To give certain examples, coming from a professional services organization, we do hire a lot of taxation resources. How do we attract these taxation resources? Do we need only India taxation? No, we require global taxation. We require people with that relevant experience. How we can attract talents from Japan? How we can attract talents from Switzerland? How we can attract talents from US becomes a bit easier today. Middle East becomes a bit easier today, but at the same time, rest of the countries becomes even more tougher to hire candidates from, even the expats or maybe the NRIs that we refer to. So having said that, we need to really look at identifying those key roles, responsibilities for which we require people. That is the strategy. Under that strategy, we need to create the right frameworks to accommodate those resources. Once we have that particular framework, which is more efficient enough to accommodate, which is by view of visa regulations, the government regulations, or the other regulatory forces, the taxation for the candidates, taxation for the organization, the benefits for the organization, how long we can retain them. And those are some aspects which comes into play. But in case of an NRI, it becomes a bit easier. There are a lot of people who try to reach out. So the major advantage from a EY or maybe my erstwhile organization DXC and all, we had global presence. So majority of them used to connect with our local offices. They used to find out opportunities what exist in our various other geographies and how they can apply for it. So these are certain attraction that we need to, we used to continuously be engaged with the candidates and provide them. And candidates also continue to reach us out. So those are the plus factors that we had, and we started attracting a lot of talents over here.
So Ellen, if I may just, were there specific programs both at DXC or currently at EY, are there specific programs to attract global talent?
Absolutely. See, it has to be more candidate-friendly policies and processes. Say for example, when an NRI comes in, what he or she is going to be expecting. If we have identified the right role for to hire a person, whether the person is interested to come means, we have to ensure that he has a smooth landing. At the same time, he has the right role available, because he must have worked at predominantly all these people would have worked as individual contributors. What kind of role that we are really looking forward to? Are we aligning them to the right role? So that is where the framework, the architecture of HR really comes into play, that how we can accommodate those talents in the system. And when I say the mobility program perspective and all, how we are easing out their movement from X country to Y country, what kind of benefits that we are extending to them, the relocation benefits, or maybe a lot of people come with expectation that, they want to look at really the good medical coverage, which is available in the landing country. At the same time, good schooling for their children, how we are able to enable those aspects. So we continue to create a lot of buddy programs around it. We try to attach a lot of buddies with them. We continue to direct them as to how they can achieve the desired goals for them to get acclimatized to the new environment and get settled and start performing. You're on mute.
Ashish, we'll hear from you. Ashish Goel.
That's the constant confusion that we're going to have on this call. So, I would actually, while listening to Ellen and Avinash yourself, I was just thinking that there are some organizations that have succeeded in attracting not just NRIs, but people of various nationalities back to India. More often than not, these are relatively shorter term assignments, of a few years, and maybe not permanent relocation. But those people have actually benefited, both the organizations and the people have benefited from their stint in India, because in a lot of ways, for many companies, their India centers are slightly different from their global centers, right? Because there is so much of outsourcing that happens here. And there are organizations that have succeeded in doing that, and those people have gone on to do much bigger things in life after their India stints. They've learned a lot from their India stints. And, you know, it would be great to expand the conversation to beyond NRIs to attracting global talent as well. Right? And in that respect, each organization, for example, even VMware, we are also trying to, speak about the India Center, the work that happens in the India Center, and we're not just a back office. We might have been there in that space maybe 10 years back, but we're not there anymore. Some of our best products are owned completely in India. There is an increasing push for ownership of, or business ownership of some of our products based in the India Center, and with increasing visibility, we are seeing increasing mobility of talent back to India. And when I say back to India, so far in my experience in VMware, it's been mostly the people of Indian origin who wanted to come back. At the same time, we've had some experience of attracting global talent, people from other nationalities, and they've benefited significantly from their stint in India.
You're talking on mute, Avinash.
Now you can probably talk about Freshworks and yeah.
So the story of Freshworks when it comes to attracting global talent is, I think we are very clear. We're not going after the talent that is in the 1 to 5 year bracket. We are looking at mid-senior that have specialist expertise in a certain area that wants to come back. And the incubation time, right? When I talk about incubation time, it's from the point that you make the first contact with the prospective candidate up until they come on board. It ranges anywhere between 6 months to 1.5 years. There have been a number of talent that said, yeah, Freshworks is a great company. We want to work with Freshworks, but we're not ready at this point in time because of their own personal reasons, right? Children in school at a crucial stage and whatnot. And we're talking about people in the mid 40s, upper 40s. So we'll have to wait patiently to get the right candidate. And some of the things that have really worked well for us after we have been successful in onboarding the returning Indians is, we have a very, very robust assimilation program for leaders. We sort of hook them up with coaches who not only invest in their professional development, but also in their personal journey. Right. And each individual senior leader gets a coach that is tied to them for a period of, say, 6 to 8 months time until they assimilate well within the organization and with the culture. Culture is pretty much our USP for success. We invest heavily in preserving and scaling Freshworks culture. Right. And such assimilation programs really go a long way in terms of getting the leaders onboarded quickly, and also to make sure that they don't think about going back. They have a meaty role with the company. They have a long-term prospect of growing with the company, and their work creates visibility and impact. And with all the support that we are providing in terms of assimilation, they're able to quickly sort of get through the initial phases of reverse culture shock, because these are Indians that have been living in the US or UK or other parts for more than 10, 20 years. And once they come back to their country, they do go through a reverse culture shock, not to mention the culture shock that their children and family goes through. So we also provide integrated support in terms of taking care of whatever support they need in terms of returning back to India. We don't really have a concierge sort of thing, but we do help out. The talent acquisition professionals in our organization go over and beyond their normal realm of duty to help them with settling back in India. So these two things have really helped. And while I say that, I will also say that we are not a high touch organization like if I can take the liberty of taking the name of Atlassian. I've read in blogs and in HR videos that Atlassian is an organization. It's a Sydney-based organization, right? And they go really great lengths in terms of making sure that people coming from different countries assimilate well into the organization, in terms of taking care of their accommodation, taking care of what the children need, putting them in schools. So that's a full package. And in comparison with organizations that go that extra mile, we don't do as much, but we still have been successful in terms of making sure that leaders assimilate. I think the first year is very, very crucial. If you take care of that and sort of provide a high touch, you are in a good place for the next few years to come. And that's been our learning. So I'll pause here. If there are any questions, I'm happy.
So just to take that a little further, Shobhana, in terms of the kind of roles that you look at for global talent, what are some of these roles? And are they specific to certain technologies, new age technologies that are scarcely available here in India? Are there specific geographies that you look at when you're looking at these roles?
Okay, I think there are a couple of questions. One is on the skills, and the second one is on do you hire from a specific geography? I'll take the first one first. In terms of skills, we do require seasoned leaders who've run businesses that are substantial with organizations that are similar to us. So we look for strategic agility, people that are strategic yet hands-on, people who have the experience of running products and scaling them from a small, medium business to mid-market to enterprise. We also expect people to have experienced the full software development lifecycle, right? And in terms of countries, not specific countries, but we pretty much look for product organizations and high growth organizations. In a scale up, the pace, right? It's going to be a breakneck pace. It's going to be quick decisions, working with ambiguity, strategic agility, learning agility. All of this is going to become very, very critical, and along with growth mindset. So these are some of the qualities that we look for in leaders. And we've also hired niche skills like I mentioned earlier, AI/ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, people who have experience integrating data platforms. So these are some of the skills that we've been hiring for in the recent past.
Shobhana. Tasneem, we'll hear your viewpoints from ANZ.
Sure. Hi again. So at ANZ, we are a global organization, and because we're a global organization, our talent is very cross-skilled and it's very multifaceted. When it comes to global recruitment, most of our global recruitment happens at very senior leadership levels, where the expectation is to either ramp up processes, make a huge difference. Our CTO happens to be a global leader, and most of our global leaders basically are heads of divisions. That said, do we see talent, meaning wanting to relocate to India permanently? No, not very much. And the reason behind that is because we haven't reimagined recruitment to attract global talent at all. That's something we hope to do in the future. However, because we're a global organization and our internal mobility team is very, very strong, we do see internal employees willing to relocate to India on a temporary basis. So we see a lot of people coming into India for secondments, but they eventually want to go back to India. So there is a lot of work that we have to do to have talent stay with us for longer than a 6 months to 1 year, or to make a little bit of a difference and not stay with us any longer. With financial services and with NBFCs, there is a huge potential in blockchain technologies, in AI, and in Internet of Things. these three technologies have completely disrupted the way we bank today. And in India, post demonetization, blockchain technology has made payments very, very easy for us. Internet of Things, IoT is huge in India because there's no third party required to make a transaction. And it's something every single banking firm or every single NBFC is going to leverage on. These are technologies that we should eventually try to cater to because India presents a huge opportunity in some of these areas. I guess, yeah, I guess that's about it from my end. Do you have any questions for me? Sorry, you're on mute.
I mean, these folks from outside of the country come and do, shorter assignments. What is it? What is their take? What is their feedback when it comes to, the kind of work that you do here, the culture? How different is it? Have you kind of gathered any of that feedback? Because it's very important for us to know, we as a country, I mean, are no different from, work culture, work environment, than the other, countries. So any light that you can, shed on that?
Like Ashish said earlier, everybody who comes to India, even for a short assignment, they benefit largely from working here. The culture here is very different from the culture in their own country. But one of our biggest drawbacks when it comes to the Indian economy, at least at ANZ, is the compensation aspect, right? When we have to attract somebody from Australia, Melbourne or Sydney on a permanent basis, unless they're a global leader and are adding a great deal of value, it is very difficult for us to match their compensation scales. That's frankly one of the biggest challenges that we have. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, to some extent. From your perspective, I mean, you come from a business background. So when you talk to your HR business partners, I mean, is global talent on your mind? Or, I mean, when there are demands that you have, which are, tough to kind of fulfill, do you talk about exploring global talent pools, Jyoti? You're on mute.
Oh, that's so sorry. So although my role doesn't involve directly into head hunting, but yes, as I think Ashish was rightly telling, as in Ashish Goel and Ben. So here we hire global talent basically in senior roles and very senior who can lead functions or who are leading functions and businesses, and with a very clear expectation that because ours is a very niche industry in itself. Although we are cross collaborating, and today, I mean, we are talking about industry, maybe a couple of years down the line, the industry lines are blurring, and industry might not be a right term to use. So we have widened our scope when we are hiring. But yes, having said that, our talent acquisition or mobilization is largely into pockets where we see these skills coming in and adding values. And more from a business side, I will see, because I personally worked with expats. My boss is an expat, so he is a US citizen. So I see, he has been here from last couple of years. I have 1 year old. So we do have frequent interactions, and we see people coming in. And the first thing is that not everyone comes to the family and lands in India. So whether it's the first, they want to see how the company is from a culture perspective, and whether they are going to settle down here, and then they do take long-term calls on relocation plans. So that's where organizations, we go out of the way, a buddy program, or if we can see certain companies like Back to India, if I can quote, there's some you can see some 5,000 odd registration. They play end to end kind of role, right from landing, from the schooling, helping them in the schooling, helping them doing the financial planning. So if organizations like us, we try always to give a holistic picture and more so a transparency in roles. How do they kind of scale up, and how do they can add values in their present roles. So with this visibility and more, as rightly said by Tashneem, the compensation is a big challenge, which when it comes to peaking in a mid to senior roles on. So those are kind of challenges we see. But yes, when we see challenges, there are opportunities and there are white spaces available. And having said that, most of our leaders do come from, we have people coming in from Middle East, expats from US. So we have been doing a decent job, and we're keeping eyes open whenever, we kind of try to acquire global talent.
Deepti, from your perspective, Happiest Minds, I mean, what is it that you guys have been doing when it comes to global talent, Deepti?
So the domains which we focus in Happiest Minds primarily are split into various niche technologies. The digital, AI, IoT, analytics, RPA. In fact, we have specific business units for each of these functions. So the skill mapping for each of these business unit is quite different. And that's why it makes it very difficult for us to tap the talent. Within India itself, or, as Shobna was mentioning, for talent of AI, ML, and product-based setup, it's really difficult to kind of lure them with good compensation, a lot of benefits, and a lot of things associated with them, and to keep them engaged. While we have, come up with a couple of specific programs to integrate expats, primarily from insurance and benefits and other aspects. And we also have long-term monetary aspects from an ESOP perspective, which we launched for our expats. That's something which we explored for our US, UK regions. But then for other regions, we are still trying to figure out how to go about reaching out to larger talent. As I mentioned in my earlier discussions, Netherlands, New Zealand, and other regions, we are still, exploring contractors or third-party vendors who are helping us to fulfill requirements at junior levels. But when it comes to leadership levels, yes, we are looking at, we have full-time employees who are taking strategic roles and driving sales or heading business units or, consulting roles at different geographical locations. So that's a combination of, I think the challenge is on, I think is still learning over the journey. And one of the challenges also what I've seen is, while I can take the liberty of taking Ashish and Lakshmi's name, they are quite established brands, globally. But we come from a little bit of Indian origin company. For us to create a global footprint in countries like Netherlands, New Zealand, or US, UK, it takes a lot of effort in branding and reaching out to sub-communities where we can target the right segment of people.
Awesome. Thanks, Deepti. Ashish, welcome back.
Hey, sorry guys, I'm having terrible check day. Apologies.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, so Ashish, we were, I mean, you also come from a, business background again. So we were talking about, the global talent, or is global talent on the agenda for your TA strategy. So if you could just, tell us a little bit about what happens at your end.
So two things. Well, in our kind of setup, and even in the pure play banking setup, so we are asset management firm. And if you have to do a quick parallel, it will be a banking firm managing asset and wealth. What happens is the top talent is always close to customers, which is where the front office is. And for most part, front office is always your country of origin from where the firm is established, and the areas where they sell products. Now, what happens for India is we are mostly shared services and GIC, if you will, where supporting business to be more agile, nimble is what our motive and agenda is. So what happens is your top talent in terms of business is knowledge stays within the country where the business is selling the products. and the GIC is basically supporting them. Now, if you and the shift is basically in the way GICs are operating today, wherein from transaction and from shared services type of role, tech innovation and value-added roles are being projected in GICs. It could be either tech advisory or product advisory or product management for that matter, because that's the core competency of a GIC for most part. And the skill availability of those areas are pretty abundant in Indian market. So our primary focus is that we do have expats who come and help us get things sorted on a secondment basis and stuff like that, but we not really have too much of expats or NRIs sitting on our India center. We have more techno functional people sitting in India center. We have more tech innovation happening here. We have more change management and transition happening here. So for us, there's not so much of emphasis on having international talent sitting on the India board, because it's not cost effective as well, right? So we look for local talent, which is more cross functional and stuff like that. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents here, and I think that would be the case for all the GICs that you see in India market. And I'm sure, Avinash, with your background with jobs for her, you would have seen that GICs are primarily focused in change, consulting, and transformation type of role, and not so much on business, because wherever it is about investment, it's more about touch and feel. While you can create a lot of platforms which are integrated digital, like you can do digital onboarding, you can do digital chatbots and stuff like that. While chatbots are interfacing in the market, but creation of those chatbots and digital platforms are happening from India, for which we have a lot of talent available in Indian ecosystem as itself. So not so much of international hiring that we do for India market. We definitely do a cross-regional hiring for our international markets. Like we'll have someone from Europe who will be sitting in Americas and supporting business, and vice versa, someone in Europe coming from Americas and helping business based on their knowledge and expertise. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks. Great. So that brings us to the next question of, while we see there are organizations doing at different stages, doing different things to look at talent across the globe. So if you were to look at as an organization to attract, integrate, and retain, what are some of the things that or platforms that you've looked at, or you would like to build programs going forward? So your views on that, Ashish, go ahead.
So that's a very pertinent question, and I'm dealing with that situation now, because I also lead innovation and capabilities for our firm. If you look at, and people from HR would surely vouch on this situation, when there's a hiring manager looking for a potential candidate, the biggest task for talent and acquisition is to basically screen through the universe of resume, which is tedious, and most of the time it's a keyword search, and then putting that profile in front of the hiring manager, and most often than not, the conversions are not that great, because there's no intelligent screening happening, and not every talent acquisition leader or a analyst or a manager knows everything about all the domains. Suppose if I have a talent acquisition partner who's not experienced in machine learning and cognitive ability, and he or she has to screen a resume, it would not be that efficient with someone having that background and then screening the resume. So the need of the hour is having an integrated platform, basically hire to retire, which is more intelligent. Now, resume parsing is one of the favorite ask by the HR leaders. So what happens is you basically put all your resumes through this parsing tool with certain business rules, and they actually throw out the profiles which are the best match. Now, what happens is where you were giving 20 resumes with a little bit of relevance, now you're giving 2 resumes with more relevance based on the confidence of the system, because that system goes through learning. It learns what kind of conversion rates are happening with the resume that are being put forward. So having that platform is absolutely critical. People should start investing in something which is more intelligent, artificial intelligence or a machine learning backed platform, which is basically hire to retire. It helps you learn the retention, it helps you the fitment, it helps you in seeing conversion rates as well. That's one bit. The second bit is every firm should, and this is what we're doing quite extensively, every firm should actually have a building talent depth type of initiative at their firm. And what that means is this function should be a shared services across the firm where they look at niche skill in the market. And it needs a lot of work, both inwards and outwards. My niche skill or my future target operating model from talent perspective would be very different from a consulting firm, because consulting has a pipeline of projects, and based on that they go and hire. But that is not a case for a GIC, because I cannot have 20 machine learning expert or a data science PhD sitting on my books, because it's huge cost for me. So having a core group which can actually focus on the strategy of the firm, mapping with the required skill set, and then create a skill demographic or a skill repository of existing employees who can be put on the most significant change program or a leading platform program, and then find out what is the gap. And the gap can have 2 interventions. One, you upskill and retain and reskill your existing skill sets to take the new strategic change programs, or bring in talent. If you cannot bridge that gap, if buy versus build sort of decision that a firm needs to make, what it means in terms of reskilling, upskilling existing talent to take a new demanding project, or going and hiring a top demand from the market. So yeah, these 2 things should be on top of priority for every GIC type of setup. For consulting, it's very, very different, because you know what skills are required, you know what you don't have, you have a billing availability for that, and then you go and hire. But for GICs, it's all cost, right? So, and with so much of market volatility, cost reduction becomes the primary perspective. So having that sort of analysis being done internally helps in managing right resources for right project and enabling business to achieve more with same or less.
Thanks, Ashish. So Ashish, we'll come back to you now. So a product organization, I'm sure the kind of skills, the kind of talent that you look is completely different. So from your perspective, how do you attract global talent? And if you were to do that, what is it that you're currently doing? What sort of platforms are you currently looking at?
Sure. So our focus on attracting global talent, frankly, has been relatively limited, and not. I would not say that our efforts to attract global talent have been very all-encompassing of sorts. What we've been active in is that's primarily driven by the specificity of skills that we look for, the specificity of roles. And like the other Ashish pointed out, we are a GIC, and GICs have a certain different requirement compared to the the outsourcing organization, the consulting organizations. And in our context, we do see that that it's mostly the Indians who are seeking to return to India, and we don't see as much of interest from people of other nationalities to come to India and experience the environment here. And I don't yet have a pulse of why that could be so. Maybe that's just because we don't really do a good job of selling ourselves. We don't really do a good job of projecting our working environment. Because I do see people who've left the country maybe 20 years back, they still think the predominant occupation of people here is still snake charming. But the country has evolved, the working environment has evolved, and we need to do a better job of projecting ourselves and showing the kind of talent that exists out here and the kind of work that happens here. And that's been our primary focus, frankly, in VMware, where we are trying to where we're trying to enhance this the global brand for ourselves, both within the company and outside, and project the reality that our India center is really it's not just a back office. It is the best of work is happening in this center, and that the hope is that in the future it will help us attract even larger numbers of global talent.
If I can just quickly come in, I think Ashish raised a very, very good point. The Indian nationalities are the ones who are willing to come back because of various reasons, family commitments, tiebacks to India, or the market volatility itself. Other nationalities, you will see inter-department transfers like secondments, short-term assignment. Those are the conversions that happens, but these are very minimalistic, like few percent, maybe 0.5% of the overall resource base that you might have. And it is also about the fitment of the capability versus the availability of that role in the offshore organization. So yeah, that's a valid point.
So in fact, Ashish, that trend is kind of growing steadily. If you look at Indians who've kind of been coming back to India over the last decade or so, I mean, 2010 to 2016, 17, on an average, if you just picked US as a geography, there were anywhere between 3,000 to 3,500 families which were actually coming back. Today, that number has doubled. We kind of have close to 8,000-9,000 people. Of course, I mean, there are a lot of other factors coming into play, which is the geopolitical scenario and stuff like that, COVID to a certain extent. But increasingly we are seeing that India presents a unique opportunity, and people do want to capitalize on that. And organizations like yourselves should have specific programs to look at this talent, build a pipeline of such, because they come with a global exposure. They have a lot of other skills and traits that could certainly benefit organization and the country as such. So Shobna, I mean, we'll hear from you in terms of specifics about the talent programs, the global. You did mention a little bit about it in the past, but I mean, specifically going forward, what would you do as an organization when it comes to attraction and building pipelines of such talent?
Sure. So I don't see us doing anything differently, but I see ourselves farming more, meaning doing more of what we already do in terms of talent branding, leveraging HR technology, and also strengthening our culture assimilation programs, right? So in terms of talent branding, we have been leveraging a lot of these women in technology programs, Return Back to India programs offered by, we are a venture capital invested company, right? We are funded, and there are a lot of these programs which happen in the US, conducted by the Accel Sequoia partners, which sort of showcase the opportunities available in India and also connect the prospective candidates, even if they are passive, that may be looking to come back to India with the opportunities back in India through their companies, the companies that they fund. Right, so we leverage such platforms and get access to candidates. And like I mentioned before, the incubation time before you get a mid-senior on board is anywhere between 6 months to a year. So we start engaging with them and on an exploratory basis. And we also create a talent brand for us in all of these platforms offered by our partners. Right, so we continue to do more of that in 2021. In addition, we are also coming up with a social media campaign. There's going to be a lot of investments there because like, I don't know if it was Tasneem or Yadu that mentioned that we are a company that has Indian origin, and hence we need to do more of branding in European markets as well as in the North American markets if we have to attract the kind of talent that we want. So we will continue to invest in branding. And once we have people on board, I think there's some of the levers that are going to help us are helping them assimilate better and also engage them for the long term in terms of giving them roles that they will be able to sort of take to the next level, roles that can scale as we grow. There's no doubt about growth. There is no doubt about the opportunities that exist. It's a question of sort of matching the aspirations of those returning candidates with the available opportunities. Avinash.
So Ellen, I know EY runs this Gig Now program, right? So I'm sure, you've been looking at talent across the globe through this, program. What sort of impact has it made? I mean, have you really been able to kind of look at, talent across different geographies? I mean, what kind of dividends has it paid off so far, Ellen?
I was trying to, when somebody else was talking, I was just trying to raise my hand and talk about the gig economy, and that is what is the in thing today. And we can talk enough about hiring FTEs into the system with a niche skill or something, but at the same time the market is changing. People are not willing to take on only one assignment. They want to switch assignments. They want flexibility in their working model. That is what is the need which has cropped up in the industry today by way of a gig. And predominantly the gig tantamounts to two types of people. One is people who are contractual workforce. Another one is the freelancers. Freelancers is a bit tricky piece of work wherein you need to make a particular task into microprocessors, and then you need to microservices, and then you need to provide them to deliver. But at the same time, in a contractual workforce, you can always hire them for the need and release them, because you don't end up adding to your operational cost for a longer time. So you just invest for some time and release them. So that is the cost advantage that we have. Coming to the point of that, how much we are attracting and how much we are gaining today, if you ask me, EY as an organization, though we are trying to make a lot of inroads into the gig, but at the same time we are still growing. It is a new concept. Last 2 years we have made a lot of space. We recently did a lot of huge roadshow through social sites, and we created our database to reach almost around 20 to 25,000 at this moment. We are trying to fill as many positions as possible through the gig workforce, especially almost I can say that 500 to 600 roles have been identified across streams, which can be filled through a gig model. So the advantage is cost, the advantage is flexibility of retaining them. The advantage is giving flexibility to the candidates, how they want to shape up their career, whether they want to retain themselves within the organization over the months. As some people pointed out that, even the NRIs, even the expats, when they come, they would like to, first of all, understand that market, whether they can swim through the lanes as we are today. They all know that, today India has grown to a different stream altogether. It is not as it was 10 years back. Today, you have the best of the product development companies in India. You have the best of the services organizations in India. You have all kinds of types of work that we do over here. We do a lot of innovation over here. It is not that everything happens over there. Fine. So end of the day that, every candidate knows that, what is that they can look forward to in India. So that's the reason in my initial view, I did share that, when candidate knows the market, it is not they don't know. We need to only do the right branding of our organization as to what we are. That is one. Second is like, ensure that, you target the right skilled people, what you want to hire, where you want to hire. It is not that across all streams, you should go and hire. No, you need to identify where you want to hire such kind of resources, whether from the expertise perspective or from the temporary nature of the task perspective, and whether you really want to invest for a long term. So that is a strategy that we need to come out with. So gig is really helping us in that particular mode. And today, if you ask me how much of them are there in India, we have crossed 1,000 workforce on the gig at this moment. And gig 2.0 is something that we are strongly venturing into, which is predominantly cutting various tasks into microservices and selling it, wherein a task will be cut out to be carried out by 4 different maybe resources. They can do at their time, and they can deliver it. And it is the internal team which has to integrate all together and deliver to our customer. So that is the kind of model that we are reaching out to. You must have seen that how the Upwork works, how the talent coder works. Today, the gig industry is running into already billion, but we are thinking that it is just a new economy. No, it is already running for time, and really there are a lot of people who are using that and making huge money out of it, especially the candidates in the market. Who knows, within any of us in this call may be part of any of the gig and providing services to many of the organizations in the industry. So it is all that how much time you want to invest. It is gives you the flexibility. So that is the flexibility that we want to bring in within our organization, which we have done it, and we are continuing to do so. We are trying to invest lot of things, a lot of our time, energy, investments into this gig, and grow this to a larger scale.
Thanks, Ellen, for that. Deepti?
Yeah, as being, a shared services model and a set industry per se, if I can say, we know what we exactly do, and we are pretty much defined our roles and, the client base. Although the ecosystem is changing, we know we need change leaders, coming in with different perspective, but there is always a bench sitting, and we believe promoting internal people. So whenever you have it hiring global talent very well grows with a corporate strategy, what exactly you are vying to, what business line you are going to set, and considering the time period, as we said, we discussed earlier, let's say it goes with everyone, right? 6 months to a year, even more than that. So is your business or your company willing to afford to wait for that time, or is your client on the other side willing to have when we are in need? So we have been proactive, having said that, when we anticipate relations to come in, and then I would say we have gone ahead branding ourselves big time. So I've been personally watching this out. So the number of followers on the social media, it's been increasing. The engagement rate has gone up. So it all goes with your marketing strategy, your corporate strategy put together, and then we look at internal talent. Are we having skill ready resources? Are we having that talent pool which we can build? And or if in case we don't see that happening, yes, and then we do reach out. And then about the passive, how do we attract passive talent? It's about that value proposition, the brand. We at R1, we are at 20,000 plus, as I said, but how many of us do know that it's there's an organization which works in this healthcare, revenue cycle management? So how do we bring in? We are hiring people from different backgrounds. So personally, as I said, I have come from the BFSI background and into this domain. So that's how do we position as a company, and then we reach out to the target audience, keeping things in mind that the roles are very niche. So we have been doing a lot of programs happening at the back end, and yes, we are agile, and we keep, and COVID has taught us many lessons, new lessons, and we are the agility is going to go up from here. And as new relations are going to come in, the gig concept, we are into that FT, full-time hiring. When you have someone on board, the cost component hits. So that's when, the gigification, if I can call, if it's in process, then that's going to help big time, Avinash, for bringing in global talent to a company.
Deepti, you there? Deepti Mulya?
Yeah, Avinash.
Yes. So what are some of the specific things that you have been, doing from a talent attraction when it comes to global talent, and integration when people have actually returned back? I mean, I'm sure there are people who you have kind of hired who've returned back, Deepti?
Yeah, so from a global talent perspective, we may not be that mature. We're still learning in the journey. Some of the geographies where we established US and UK, we've been able to leverage on the internship models. We've tied up with a couple of universities and tried this internship model, something which Lakshmi also mentioned. Trying to get contractors and internship is something which has worked for us. We're not as big as large organizations, but we are just venturing and seeing how is it, in specific skills. If I have to talk about analytics or consulting or specific RPA, we are able to target some universities who are providing specialization and trying to get interns to see how they are scaling up, and then moving on to contracting job or something, R-based consulting work, and further taking them on a permanent role. Because one of the challenge for IT services organization is long-term projects. Not many projects will be long-term, it will be short-term. So getting them full-time is a challenge for us. The other thing which we're trying, which is not applicable to global, but within India is because of COVID, it has expanded the scope of leveraging talent across various cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities. And we are trying to see through a diversity agenda, we can tap into those cities and do campus hiring or look at various platforms to hire women who have taken break and bring them back to take on consulting assignments or work from home assignments or R-based assignments. So we've come up with flexi models and long-term work from home kind of models for especially this particular segment. That kind of suffices our need of not having long-term projects in certain segments, and also help us a long-term continuity in this segment. So I think it serves both the purpose in terms of giving us diverse talent pool, innovation, and also leveraging passive talent, which is not so much available on these job portals.
In fact, on that point, I actually had a question for Deepti. Avinash, with your permission.
Please.
So Deepti, now for most of us in this call, we are organizations that are headquartered elsewhere, not in India. In your case, do you believe that being headquartered in India has helped you attract people from across the globe to the headquarters? Has that helped you in any way?
I will not say that's I think it's primarily the nature of work. What I've realized is the nature of work which you do is something which people are very intrigued into, and especially expats. They are very, very particular of what is job assignment, what exactly the expectation are. And because of some of these technologies like RPA, consulting, and digital and AI kind of excite these people, especially the young gig economy and, the young generation. So we've seen a lot of fresh talent pool there. A lot of freelancers, especially in US, UK, will be able to easily tap on in these regions. So I'll not say it's because of the headquarters, maybe because we were going IPO. That's also one of the journey, which a lot of people got attracted, the full-time leaders or full-time positions, especially leaders, because they had vested shares and, they were seeing a long-term financial gain and monetary gain. But if you look at short-term assignments, if you look at consultants or developers or if I say Salesforce and NetSuite and all these product-based technologies which you're looking at, is primarily basis nature of assignment, because these assignments are short, engage them very actively, give them a good experience which they can showcase, and then they can leverage on and move on to bigger firms. But it's come to our advantage in a way.
Got it. Thank you very much.
So Avinash, can I also add one thing over here?
Please.
Yeah. So as Deepti was rightly mentioning that, we do get attracted, by the candidates. So right engagement is more important overall. And one is brand building. So like if Happiest Minds went for an IPO, so, everybody knew what is Happiest Minds. It was there in the news. People were reading day in, day out. It is a brand automatically getting built up. You don't have to put in any extra effort outside of that. So that was one thing. So similarly that, every organization today, if they want to really attract talents, especially from the global world, whether as NRI or as expats, or as a gig resource or as a full-time employee, the first and foremost thing that any company needs to focus is on that. What kind of a brand they are creating and how they are making that visible to the resources, talents in the market. That is one. Second is like the model, the framework that we have. Do we attract talents only from one segment, which means that all resources together, or do we give a special focus to a diversity? D&I is majorly needs to be focused. If there is a right framework for diversity and inclusion in your hiring model, you attract a lot of talents to that. Then comes the gig, whether you want to hire a full-time or a part-time or a freelancer, what kind of model that you have. So these are some framework which you need to make it more visible to the industry, to the talents, which attracts them, which they come to know that, yes, this is an organization. If I go, I can explore more. I will not be confined to one thing. That is what is more important. Today, everybody wants to do more than one task. Nobody wants to get confined to one. How you can make that happen? So the freelancers, the gig resources, they are the guys who really think in those lines and try focusing on that. And it gives you a lot of flexibility. It gives you a lot of flexibility even while hiring the D&I resources. It makes you work in the current model, in the scheme of things that we have into. All this requires the right branding, right skilled people for the right job. That is the basic. That's all.
Thank you, Ellen.
And can I just add two critical points which I have experienced most recently, and to Ellen's point, when you're doing D&I as an initiative or as an agenda, make sure you do not tie it back to percentage, because the moment you tie it back to percentage and number, you will achieve it.
Yeah.
You will make sure you will achieve it, and that's not good for the organization, because then you force. Second point. Whenever you are hiring a mid to senior level executive, first of all, it takes a lot of bandwidth, a lot of time to bring someone at a level where they will be contributing towards strategy of the firm. Make sure you have a career progression plan for them. Make sure you have a next level or a journey plan for them, else you will lose them. And I'm telling you this from my personal experience. When I say personal experience, my interviews with few organizations that I was trying for next move, they didn't have, while they were bringing me in at a senior level, there was a lot of questions around pay parity, position parity, the age and the composition parity of the team itself. So don't just hire because the candidate is brilliant and fits into your current scheme of things. Focus on what the candidate is going to do next. How will you keep that person retained in your organization? Because if you don't, you are actually playing with your organization's initiative and that person's career as well. So make sure that mid-senior level, I'm not talking about junior level, because junior level is, you have 17 to 22% industry level attrition. You cannot control that because there's a lot of jobs in the market. They will go in and out. You will lose some, you will gain some. But whenever you're bringing someone at a senior level, make sure there's a well thought through strategy for that person as well, which matches for his or her aspiration and the strategy of the organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashish. We'd like to hear from you, Tasneem, from an ANZ standpoint, specifics about, your talent strategy, when it comes to global talent.
Avinash, I'm going to echo what everybody here said. A few things that Ellen said really stuck with me. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, there are a few aspects of diversity and inclusion like gender, LGBTQ hiring, PWD recruitment that we put a lot of concentrated effort into. But India as a country, I don't feel we put the same kind of effort into attracting people from different races. I think COVID is going to now present a great opportunity for firms to become more global. And ANZ's constantly striving to work towards that. we're going to begin with incubating the gig economy and what we're currently trying to do is carve and curate opportunities for a global workforce. And considering post-COVID, we are thinking of a hybrid work model. We are going to go remote with a few roles, and only certain number of roles are going to remain full-time. There is a lot more opportunity to bring in a global workforce. There are a few challenges here when we're thinking of bringing a global workforce, right? One is, of course, the relocation aspect of it. Unless it is a returning Indian or an NRI who wants to return back to India, if we are looking to hire candidates from different races, it is extremely challenging from a relocation perspective. Also, if we're making the effort to attract a global workforce, we cannot transition them into BAU. We have to carve opportunities for them that really add value. And this is absolutely relevant for every single person that's part of our workforce, but more for people that we're attracting globally because the risk of attrition is that much higher. At this point, I feel like we have a really long way to go. And I'd only be able to give you an insight once we curate a strategy and a framework. And I think companies like yours could come in really handy in terms of just helping us with the kind of research that we require in order to create a framework, the right framework to incubate global talent into our workforce.
Sure, Tasneem. We'd be happy to, talk to you on that.
We'd love that.
That brings us to our, last, point. I mean, while we spoke about, challenges, some of the programs, some of the, things that each organization is doing. I just want to hear from you some success stories. I mean, I'm sure there are Indians who've come back. Ashish Goyal, we'll start with you. So I'm sure VMware has inducted a lot of, folks from different parts of the globe at, various levels. So if you could tell us, one or two, stories, anecdotal, in terms of that kind of help us understand what were the challenges that, you saw, they saw when it came to, integrating within the system and the culture fitment.
So in my experience at VMware and in previous organizations as well, we've been most successful at integrating talent from other countries, and these could be people of any nationality. Yeah. So, these could be people of different cultures as well. But we've been most successful at integrating these people when they've already been part of the same company for a while. So basically internal talent. So like Ashish was mentioning earlier, interdepartmental moves. Those people tend to settle in rather more quicker and with more ease. There's obviously a lot of investment that goes in from the organization to help these people settle in, there is no doubt. So that's one of the big factors that has helped us, integrate such people. That's one. The other thing, and this has been spoken about in this group already a couple of times earlier, about the kind of work that is offered to people, that also helps with the stickiness, with the engagement, and with the growth. So again, in my experience, it's been, when we are probably setting up a new line of work, or there is a transformation that we are doing. In an existing line of work, there is a transformation that is happening. And for that, if we've brought in specialized talent from other countries, that has really worked wonders for both the parties, the organization and the person. And here I'm talking about my experience of both VMware and earlier as well. I've been part of Accenture earlier, and we've seen some successes there too. And a lot of these people, especially with these kind of backgrounds, where they were brought in to either set up something new or something strategic, that is, or for a transformation, and when they were internal talent, right, internal to the organization, that has helped with the achieving their business objectives and with the stickiness both.
Okay, Ashish, thank you. Ashish Jha, any success stories at your?
I'll give you my example. I moved from I moved from London to India, which was my homecoming, basically. And I've done this twice. Once I moved from States to India, picking a job in the area that I wanted to pursue my career with one of the multinationals, Tesco. And then again, I moved back to London with HSBC Bank, and then came back to India and picked this job at Invesco. I think I would also mention what Ashish said, finding a right role and having that thought clarity between candidate and the organization is what makes it stick together. Else it will fall apart. If I don't know what I want, that is one bit which candidate needs to do for his or her understanding of the role, and the firm needs to evaluate it very, very carefully that do they see long haul opportunity in the candidate that they're trying to bring. Now, I have my lot of friends who have just come back to India because of COVID situation, so that's not voluntary. That's not by choice. It was because of the prevailing situations where their job was at risk, their visa was not getting extended, and stuff like that. But all in all, both from candidate side and from organization side, fitment and validation it should be very, very critical in getting anyone on board, because the choices you make, you'll have to stick with it for some time. You cannot just keep jumping at a senior level every now and then, because Hyderabad being a market, I know Bangalore has a lot of opportunity, but when you come to Hyderabad, you do not have so much of open space for moving in the market at a senior level. So my two bits there.
So Ashish, while you mentioned organization fitment, the career aspect of it, on one side, what were the other softer aspects when it came to your personal, goals, motivations that you had that kind of, got you attracted to India? I mean, while everyone wants to settle down in the US or other, developed, markets, you made this decision twice and came back to India. I mean, what made you do that?
Few things. One, I wanted to come back to India because I wanted to use my skills and contribute back to society. This might sound very noble, but that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to come back. And I could see that, and this is my honest opinion, I'm okay to be challenged here. International places doesn't give you that frequent choices to choose your career, unless it's a very big organization where there's a lot of departments where you can jump in and out. But it doesn't give you a variety of opportunities outside that organization to try. So that was one of the reasons where I wanted to come and see this ecosystem, because this would have been my first stint in India. In last 12 years, I was all away, and this is what I wanted to do. So that was one of the deciding factors. That, why don't I go and see how that ecosystems play around, because I also wanted to have some experience of APAC as a working setup for me to gain that expertise where it would fit my overall global exposure. That was one. Second, I think family also plays a bigger role when you're trying to grow your family. Your mom and dad are getting old, so you want to be closer to them. So that emotional factor also somewhere comes in. But I think the trick of the trade is balancing your emotional and professional intelligence to choose a right decision for you. That becomes critical. And I think I've achieved the first part, where I get variety. I get a lot of things to explore, whether it's industry engagement, whether it's startup ecosystem. The way startup ecosystem and industry engagement is open in India, I don't think it's open anywhere else in the world. Like Silicon Valley, it's quite close-knit. Only the venture capitalists or the inventors and innovators are part of the inner circle. But here in India, you can actually be part of such innovative incubation setups as well. So yeah, those were a few of the driving factors for me.
So Ellen, stories at your end, I'm sure, peers, colleagues.
So I think I reiterated this point earlier in my view also. We hire to the expertise and the skill. That is the first criteria. And that is what these candidates really look forward to. And if that is aligned, and if they know that, what is in store for them as a growth path, they acclimatize pretty fast in the organization. Then we have a support system, the best of the policies, processes around them, and, which supports them to get acclimatized faster, like a buddy program, supporting them in the initial stages, making them comfortable. So that gives them an additional comfort factor. So when they look at, all these factors coming together and they are getting the right role responsibility, they are able to adjust faster in the new organization. The second part is like, these people, when they ventured into outside India for opportunities, they grinded themselves to a very high level, so they all know that, what this grinding means. So when they come back, even if they are an individual contributor, they know that, how they need to move up the ladder. As Ashish just highlighted, the opportunities are enormous, which may not be there in an international market. Here there is a visibility for them to grow to the up the ladder and be part of the decision making team as he grows, if he aspires for, if he or she aspires for. So with all these things, there is a larger scope for these resources. So that is the reason, again, I highlighted what kind of a branding that you do. The branding doesn't mean that, what you contribute as a business. It also talks about, what is there in store for the candidates, inside the organization, how they can grow, how they can shape up their career, and with an organization like ours, if I take for example, wherein we give a lot of thrust for the reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling of resources, because attracting talents with experience all the time may not be really helpful. But at the same time, when we provide such platforms, these candidates also come to know that, their journey doesn't get ended with one skill that they come with. They can be groomed to the next level, and they have the scope to grow in the organization. So that is the best thing. So the adaptability and the kind of flexibility that bring in along with them really helps them to acclimatize fast, make us use them to the best extent from their expertise perspective.
Thank you, Ellen, for those inputs. Jyoti, I think I need to rephrase the question. So are there any, colleagues or senior CXOs within your organization who kind of made this switch and they've kind of made a big impact on the organization?
Yeah, Avinash, rightly framed. Before answering I'd like to quote, as Ashish shared my example, when I went out and did a global MBA, the first thing comes to mind, we traveled across 3 countries, Singapore, Australia, and Middle East. So the obvious choice was, walking outside India and looking. But then I would echo Ellen's thought and Ashish's thoughts also. I did come across a couple of offers from different countries and different companies, maybe one set and one a startup. But when I did look at it and from a deeper aspect and what it has in it for me on a longer tenure, maybe one of them didn't think of it. The other one, I felt I would just stick into the talent which I have, and I might not be able to diversify myself or work on a larger in the larger scheme of things, I might not be benefited. And here at R1, when I saw this role, it was really appealing. The kind of exposure which you get from the business perspective and the kind of skill set which I'm trying to, and the discussion which I had with the India CEO was really impactful. That 1 hour of discussion, of course, today we are doing a, virtual discussion, but then that coffee over the coffee, physical discussion, and the way they planned out, the very categorically remember the talent acquisition team carving out this role, explaining me in detail what they have in plan in the next 2 years, short to mid term, and how it's going to transform. And I very clearly remember having said, this role is going to keep on evolving, and that's what you kind of want to experience after doing a MBA, and you want to learn new things. So these are a few drivers, and I would not deny even what Ashish shared, the family commitments. A second, as I was planning, my wife was expecting, so that's another factor which comes into picture, bigger factor when emotional factor, and we want to be with parents. And when you get right compensation and you see that opportunities are there to grow and and with the proliferation of IT and tech companies in tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well. So today you have that opportunity sitting at home, or traveling across and getting your work done. So that's one part. And coming back, answering to your question, Avinash, when it's at our organization specifically, what I have seen, when people do come interdepartmental from within the organization, we are a global organization, so people, we have expats and non-residents working in US. So when they do come and come from within the organization, it becomes much easier because they know the work culture, and people to peer, that interaction is there. It becomes easier for you. But otherwise, I think it's difficult, it's challenging, that culture shock which you get immediately, or a reverse culture shock, I'll say, when you come back after a long tenure. So at our organizations, yes, we do hire for a very niche set of skills. So I can count, you can finger on my fingers how many people have come from outside India. But yes, there are plans in place, and when we are open up to kind of gig, as Ellen said, would always looking at this opportunity. And yes, there's been success stories around those people who have come outside. They come with a lot of exposure. And I can say in India, the low power distance culture in the US or Western countries really helps open up things. That hierarchical structure is no more there. So those things, those mindsets, when leaders come up and they align teams, so someone leading from the front, when comes with this thing, that helps the larger organization. And
Thanks, Jyoti. I mean, in the interest of time, Shobna, I mean, one quick, story that you want to kind of share, Deepti, and then Tasneem after that.
Sure. So we have hired leaders from different parts of the globe, and they've come on, taken on businesses, and have scaled them as well. So we've had success stories. The two ingredients that helped us really retain them is without a meaty role, they're not really keen on taking on a role with any company. It's not about the money, it's not about anything else, but beyond a point, I think it's about the challenge and the impact that they can create, right? And the ability to leverage their skills that they've gained over the many years. That's what they were trying to do. So fitment is a very important thing, right? And at these levels, they're also looking for a lot of autonomy to make decisions. And also the they look at total addressable market. If it's a product organization, and if you are in a certain space, like we are in the employee engagement space as well as in the CRM space, right? So what is the total addressable market? How far can these products go? What is our plan to go public? So these are things that returning leaders think about, right? Will I have a long, stable career with the organization? Does the USP or the culture of the organization align with whatever is my personal value? Am I able to bring whatever I've honed as skills over the last few years to table? Will I have the visibility and impact that I need? And will I have free hands to operate? So these are some of the gating criteria that leaders think about when they are picking a new career or when they're trying to return to India. Right? It's more about the meatiness and the challenges in the role. And that's my sort of limited experience with hiring execs in these positions.
Thank you, Shobna. Tasneem?
To share my personal story, Avinash, I've been an expat a couple of times in my career. One was in the 2010-2014 timeframe. I spent 4 years in the US with a pharmaceutical organization. I moved from a HR business partnering role to become a comp leader for North Central and Latin America. And I decided to come back because, due to personal reasons, like most of the returning Indians do, aging parents, and you have ties back in India. So you just wanted to come back. Took another stint in Sri Lanka as a global CHRO for a not-for-profit. The reason for my move to that industry was, I wanted to feel what it was to be working in a not-for-profit sector, having spent around 18 years in the for-profit sector. So my reasons are different, but I was talking about the Freshworks story of why people want to come back and what do they look for in jobs and in careers when they want to come back.
Brilliant. Amazing, Shobna. Thank you. Tasneem, quickly one, story that you can share with us.
So I'm going to share a fairly recent story. You see the ANZ banking application, which is very similar to your ICICI Bank mobile app, the one that you personal bank and corporate bank on, was expected to transition into India. And it happened quite recently, happened around a year ago, just before we went into the COVID period. We hired an NRI for that. This gentleman was based in India earlier, had moved to Australia for many, many years, was an existing ANZ employee, and we were able to bring him back for this role. Now he's been extraordinary in this role, and some of the reasons for that is because of his familiarity with the Indian economy. It wasn't an entirely new ecospace for him. His familiarity with the global headquarters, so he knew exactly what to do, who to reach out to. He was very familiar with the culture, and there was a very short learning curve and a very short learning period for him. He transitioned back to India, and he transitioned the entire mobile banking app to India. Hired a massive team after. Most of his team members, we've been able to hire them mid-COVID, mid-pandemic, around the month of April and May. And today they are reimagining the entire life cycle, the entire experience life cycle that we're looking to provide our customers going forward, because banking has to become simpler. There are going to be fewer actual touch points, which is why digitalization plays a huge role, very important role. They do a lot of work on, like I said, IoT, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and we can't wait to see what they come up with in the near future. So that's my success story.
Awesome. Deepti, last words from you.
Yeah, I think everybody summarized it well. Meaty role is something which is a key word in all of this, especially what I have realized in a couple of success stories which we had is for short-term engagements and consulting roles is the role which you define, and the cultures for each region is different. So be a little bit agnostic of what the culture is, because like in India, we try to, we tend to work stretched hours and things like that. Every culture has different acceptability. So I think that's something which we have to respect while, getting people from different regions. And I think I can't emphasize more on the quality of role and their long-term vision of the company, something which they look forward to.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, I think we've kind of come to the end of this session. Thank you all for joining and sharing your views and giving your inputs. We will continue to push this agenda of looking at attracting global talent, and we need support from companies like yourselves to bring back great talent, from different parts of the globe to India, and ensure that India grows, to the potential that it actually has. You've been a great audience. I mean, thank you so much for your inputs. We have an opt-in group, it's called as Leaders Exchange, which is where we're going to talk more about, this subject. I mean, if you choose to, you may kind of join in. Sharnita will share with you, the link to join this group. Thank you again for taking time and joining us, everyone.